Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. It's kitchen time and this is going to be a mounting session basically. So I've got all the equipment I need: moss in soak, pliers, wire cutters, wire, things for making holes, fishing line and a glass of wine because I've come to the end of a mammoth watering session, and with the last little bit of energy I've got I need to get some of these things out of this bowl. Everything that's in there is not actually going on a mount, but what I want to try and do is get everything that I want mounted done today, which is these little oncidium types. -1, there's one's going back in a pot. Now I've got to sort out which is which now. Those are the two pieces of Alicera, they're going on the same mount. Those are the two odd bits of the yellow twinkle, and they're going to go on the same mount as well. So that's two mounts. That little Odontoglossum's going back in a pot, if it lives. So you can stay in there. That's the Dendrobium alexandrae, Latoria type, and quite honestly I'd rather that went back in a pot. It's a bit tall for a mount and it's an upright grower. So I'd end up with a mount down here and a hook about 2 foot long, and then the mount would be too low. So that's going in a... Now that's my Comet King, which is a Nobly type, which can grow quite large, but it's going to be a while before it does. So you can go on a mount. And that leaves the other Latoria type, which is the Pauly piece of the Polysema crossed with Aberrans. This is the part of it that lost all its leaves in the heat wave. So all these were new growths and they've lost their leaves. So those canes are next to useless now. I've only got 5 leaves left on the plant because that's not going to stay there, is it? I'll make my mind up, that's not going to stay there. So I've got very little left of this plant. But its point of growth is going to be, if it does, where the previous new canes were. So this is going to look pretty grim for a while, because that means all the leafless canes are going to have to be at the front of the mount, because this is the place it's most likely to shoot out, is around this area here. So I'm not checking the camera at all, am I? I'm probably off the top. So that's going to have to go flat against the mount like that, which it lends itself to do. So that will be, what I've got is a large piece of cork that it had a nice crease down the middle, so it sort of was that sort of shape on the top. So I cut it in half and just did that and got 4 nice pieces. So I've got 4 mounts ready to go, and they've just been sterilised. So they're all quite small mounts and they're all nicely rounded. As I said, this was one piece effectively. Not for long. Let me just see if I can put it back together how it was. Yeah, I think it was something like, where did I tear it? Tore it. There, I think it was something like that. As it had, and you can see it had a crease down the middle. So that made just one saw cut basically. Trouble is, when you saw them across, they do have this rather abrupt finish, which doesn't make them look very elegant. But, you know, there's only so much you can do. Right, what have we got then? Oncidium types could do with wider pieces. And that's going to look a bit big, isn't it? But twinkles grow fast. Now, where is this likely to shoot out? Totally unknown. In theory that one bloomed, so that one's newer than that one. That's not necessarily so. That's the oldest bulb, so that will go at the back. I'll risk it like that, I think. Roots near the bottom, but with enough room to get something a hold of. If you pot these types that roots tend to grow downwards, if you pot them too low, the roots will go straight into the air. Some of them will tuck round, but they're better off if they're a bit higher up, and then they've got, you know, these are not huge root systems and they are quite fine. That way the roots have got plenty of bark to grab hold of. They will grow a lot better once they grab hold of something. So that's the first one. Ugh. Hang on, I haven't put the light on. I've got working in the dark here. It just helps with the camera. I can see all right, but just puts a bit of top light on. Right, first job, hole. Look how thick that is. I'm going to have to try and make a hole through that now. That's bordering on needing a drill, that is. This stuff's so thick. Luckily it's quite soft. If you're making holes with anything that's sharp, don't put your hand over the back, will you? I mean, I've never done anything silly like that, of course. Why do you think I'm saying it? I just put I've got a, what do you call a flat-ended screwdriver, normal old-fashioned type screwdriver, which I sharpen the blade. That makes the initial hole, and then I've got a crosshead screwdriver that's larger, that sort of drives the hole through a bit bigger. And if you're going to do a mount with a hook on it, it does pay to do your hook first. Now, how tall are these plants? They're going to go up about, this doesn't grow into a tall plant. I'd say I might be able to get away with using, this is my last piece of the thick stuff. But I do have some more down in the shed. It's just, there's a bother factor involved, like I can't be bothered to go and get it. Flip that over the top. And with this thick stuff, this is rigid, so I mean I normally just twist it round the back. I normally just twist that round. It just holds it in place, but when it's the thick stuff like this, it's going to stay there anyway. This is a lot more rigid than some of my other wire. And then stick that up in the air, and we don't need all of that, that's for sure. And that might just about leave enough for a short hook. Right there, I would say. And if I leave it dangling around, it's going to waggle around as I move the mount, and it will probably knock my wine over. And you would not want to hear what happens after that. Right, now I know I don't normally put moss behind a plant, but I've got a very deep crevice on this mount, and that would be like an air gap. So I am going to put a tiny little bit in there, just in that deep crevice, that's all. And then we'll get the plant where we want it. Plants 2. Somewhere about there. I've got an old leafless pseudo bulb on the back of that. That's brilliant because I can tie that. That'll hold that piece really firmly. No such luck with this one. And as I said, this one, I haven't got a clue which side the new growth is going to come out. It's pot luck, 50-50. But that doesn't look like a new growth to me, but it could be. Could have been an immature growth following one that bloomed. But I'm going to put the one that bloomed at the front on the grounds that that's normally where it shoots out. It's a guess. That's all I can do. Right, dry hands. Let's get some fishing line. That's quite a wide piece. Come off. Oh, it's got so wedged in the little crevice it wouldn't come out. Right, so it's quite a wide piece, so each turn uses a fair bit of fishing line. I'm not going to need to go around thousands of times, but I'd rather not run out, quite honestly. It annoys me having to start a new piece and tie another knot and then tie another piece off. And scissors would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Where's me little ones? Right. Quick loop, loop-de-loop. Funny actually, some of this moss has got, now I have to say lichen. I know it's Latin, and I know that's not how you're supposed to say it, but if I call it lichen, then I've got to keep my mounts away from the full moon, and I can't be bothered. You work that out for yourself. We don't want our mounts starting to howl as soon as a full moon comes in through the glass, do we? So I'm going to call it lichen. I always have, you know, as a kid. That's how everybody I knew pronounced it, moss and lichen. But obviously it should be lichen. But there is some on these mounts. Unfortunately, it won't be alive now because I've just poured boiling water over them. So it's not going to live through that, is it? Plants first, concentrate. I did say it was the end of a long day, didn't I? Oh, itchy nose. Right. So about there. Right. Like it or not, I'm actually going to put one round a bulb on each of those plants. Just get the first turn on. I'm going around the back of that one without garrotting the leaves to hold that one in place. And then this one, as I said, I've got a leafless bulb which is perfect for putting a tie on. Is that going to hold that about right? Yes. Perfect! Except for I'd like the plants a fraction higher. Just lift them up a little bit, slide them up a bit. That's better. That's better. We'll go around once more just to hold the roots in place, and that should give me another 2 turns to get the moss on. Right, this is not a dendrobium. This is not something that needs to dry off really fast in the winter. Something that needs to stay wet when it's growing, which it isn't now, but nonetheless the hydration around the roots will encourage the new growth. This is an oncidium type, and when it starts to grow and the roots get going, it needs to stay well hydrated. None of this drying off for a week at a time in winter. So plenty of moss on there, a good mound. Better stay there as well, so I've got a wet hand here. Another one more round the bottom, and as the old London expression goes, gotcha. Through there, come out. God, don't do fishing line with wet hands, it'll annoy you, because every time you try and do something it'll move. Oh, and I've missed me V. That's why it's not grabbing hold. Take 2. The first loop with the knot makes a V, and it gives you something nice and firm to tie to, so it doesn't slide around all over the place. That's better. Do as you're told, not as you like. Quick knot there. And I am getting rather a lot of mounts with no tag, so at some point in the near future I am going to have to go back round, but I'm lucky. I know at this point that that is the pieces of the yellow twinkle, so all I've got to do is go back and look and listen to my own video, and I'll tell myself what it is. So I'm just pulling those tight by going round again. It's not always necessary, but when you've got a deep arch at the back of the mount, it does get a bit airy where your knot is, so I usually wrap round the loops and pull them tight. It just holds everything nice and firm. So I can always go back to my videos and listen to what I said and look at the pretty pictures and think, ah, that one's a yellow twinkle. Now I can do a tag. But I don't like stopping to do tags when I'm working. So that's that one done. Plenty of moss, loose ends off. Looks tatty. Yep, so that's one done. That's got a little bit dehydrated while it's been bare rooted. So that's the yellow twinkle. Next, this is the Alicera that I've been rescuing for about 3 flipping years. And I've got new growths and I've got new root sign. So it's going to grow now. I mean, the problem was that came from the lady that a lot of my cattleyas came from, and they all had fusarium. But either way, that's going to be quite a slow grower, so that's not going to need a big mount, so we'll use this little one for that. That will fit on there. Both pieces are going on there. 2 old bulbs at the back, tied on, leaving the new growths to push out their new roots. I really would like to put that. Oh, that's got 2 new growths. Missed that one. It's a good job I looked properly, wasn't it? So that, I was just going to say that would be much better if it could go that way. Well, it'll have to now, won't it? So that'll be 3 new growths. It's a bit, well, the moss will cover that up. So I've got one to the right, one to the left, and one coming up the middle. Perfect. Right. hole, wine, then hole. Where I used to work, when I worked for ICL, it was a big team of us, and we worked and practically lived together for a very long period of time, got to know everybody really well, and we had lots of little games we'd play, little sayings and things like that. And if we were somewhere where bottles of wine was being poured out, if anybody sort of was with the glasses and sort of looked up and said, "Wine," the whole room would go, "Eh." You had to be there, I suppose. Get in there. That's a good one. That's going to be a very, very lightweight one, so we can have a piece of the lightweight wire. So I've got stacks of this stuff. I know I've got loads more wire down in the shed, but there's things down there with 8 legs which I'm not too keen on, and some of them are getting big enough that they've actually got boots on, so I'm not too keen on rooting around in amongst all that lot. I will have to do it at some point in the near future because I am running short on the large wire, and I think I've got 4 or 5, maybe even more coils of wire down there just sitting there doing nothing. Does seem a bit silly, doesn't it? It's just a matter of going down there and battling my way through the cobwebs. Right, that's that one. Quick loop. It's not too wide this time, but I do need to go around the plant as well as the roots, so again I'd rather waste a bit than run out, because when I run out I talk about it a little bit and you might not want to hear what I say. It's just bad judgment, but sometimes you find, you know, you've allowed to go round like 3 or 4 times and you suddenly find you need 5 or 6 because of the way the plant sits, and you just run out. And then you've got to tie that bit off and start a new bit and tie that on and then tie that bit off, and it doubles the length of time, quite honestly. At the moment this is my sitting down relaxing time, but I need this done. That bowl that these plants are in is what I normally mix up my water and feed in. It's my stock bowl, as I call it. You know, I mix the stuff up in there and then I use small amounts in my watering bowl so that I'm not effectively reusing water anywhere near as much. You know, if I use a bowl full of water, I'm reusing it for the whole set of plants that I water. Whereas if I take a little bit at a time and use it all up, I'm using nowhere near as much. You know, 4 or 5 plants reuse that set of water. Right, once around the roots, this time, different shaped plant. So once around the roots to hold it still. Then I'm going to go up round the back this time and then come back down over the roots. So we need to go up over that one and over that leafless one without garrotting the leaves, and then just slide it down. It's only to hold it, to stop it wobbling. You know, it's not exactly going to try and fall off, is it? There's no weight to that plant at all. It's a real lightweight. Then we come back to our point there. Get some moss. So I'm just getting my finger hooked around the tie so that it doesn't slip. See, if I had that third hand, I'd be away now, because I could hold the plant and mount with one, do the moss with the other one, and hold the fishing line with the third. Come on, get it organised. Mind you, I don't suppose there's many idiots around doing fiddly little things like this, is there? So they wouldn't have a use for a third hand. Probably use it to lean on. Right, nice big mound of moss. Looks excessive, but don't forget, as moss gets watered and gets older, it starts to compact a little bit and looks a lot less floofy. I mean, it just settles down after a bit of time. I reckon 3 will do that. But as I've got excess, I'll go around again. That will just get that bit up the top there. Just squash that in, because there's a new growth right there on the edge, and That's going to push out new roots, so that will be good. Oh, just enough. Just enough to tie. And I mean just enough as well this time. No waste, we like that. Right. It's going to be a fiddly little knot with 2 short bits like that. Gotcha. Right, that's that one done. I don't bend my wire over until I get out in the grow room and see where I'm going to put it. Chances are that's far too long. This isn't going to grow into a tall plant. So good, 3 new growths. This one out the side that's a bit manky. That's got a bit dehydrated over time. It's even got a little bit of concertina in that leaf there. Yeah, that'll never go away. They never grow out once they're there. And then we've got a new growth here, and then this one pushing on quite nicely. So hopefully that is flipping rescued now. It's been treated many times for Fusarium in case it's still hanging on in there. But this one stayed in its pot a bit too long. That's why this one slowed up a bit. But I've got new roots going straight into the moss. So that's 2. The next ones are even easier because they don't need anywhere near as much moss. Comet King. It could grow quite tall, but it's not going to do it for a couple of years, I don't suspect. And at the moment there's no sign of new roots or new growth. I do have some hydratable roots. They're not perfect, but they're working. That'll do for me. So I don't need a wide mount, but the other one that I'm going to mount is a taller plant, is it? Oh, both the same height, aren't they? Right, well you can have, because you're going to have a... See, what I'm choosing now is the base. This has got a very small base, and even if that pushed out 2 new growths, which it probably won't, the base is still only going to be that wide. So it can live quite happily on a narrow mount. It doesn't need width. Whereas that one does, because the base is already that wide, so that needs the wider piece. So that's the choice this time. Right, holes. Actually, I think that might go up that way. Got some flaky bits on there. Yeah, I think that'll go up that way because I've got a huge big recess there. Well, that'll be above the plant if I do it that way up. Yeah, we'll do it that way up. Cork bark doesn't actually matter if it's upside down because it doesn't show. Obviously the plant does, not the cork itself. What's that cracking sound? I hope that's not breaking out. No, that's okay. You can split cork. I know it sounds daft when it's so soft and the way it is, but it can split. Depends how old it is, I suppose. Somewhere about there. Hook done. I didn't grab hold of it, that's slightly loose. Good chap. Right, quick loop. Quite interesting to see how long this is. 4 mounts. Be quite, this is lapse time going on here. There's no speeding up or anything. It'd be interesting to see how long it actually took to do 4 mounts. I mean, it does. You will reduce your time dramatically if you get everything ready first. Take a deep breath, have a glass of wine, whatever you need to do, coffee. But it does pay to prepare, especially if you're filming. Otherwise you think, oh now where's me pliers? Oh now where's me wire cutters? Etc. If it's all ready to go, then you can crack on. Right, now you're going to have to go halfway up because of the length of your roots. So you're going to have to go a bit like that, I think. Got no idea where this is going to shoot out from. So I'll tie the leafless cane to hold it firm, and then when I tie the roots that should be okay. It's going to twist, so if it's going to twist, twist it and then tie it. Don't let it twist after you've tied it, otherwise you've got a floppy plant. It's a lovely groove there for that old cane to sit in, but that makes the roots go off to the side, so I can't really use that. I might be able to use that one. Just move it up slightly. No, what about that one? Yeah, I think that one will do. That leaves where the new growth is likely to come a little away from the mount. And remember, this is a nobly type, much drier in winter. Yeah, so how much moss are we going to have? Nowhere near the amount we had for the what do you call it? Did I put that bit of? Oh, we put that on the floor, didn't we? Well, we didn't really. It fell. Right, so the first loop on this is going up quite high, because the first loop is to hold the plant in place, and the plant's going up quite high. So always think about where your first loop's going to go, and then it'll make fixing your plants so much easier. So it's all to do with planning, and it's all very well me saying it. I hate to think how many mounts I've done in my time, so I'm not really planning, I'm just repeating. Same old, because I've done it so many times before. And that's the position to get in. It's a nice position to be in when you haven't really got to think that much. Apart from positioning my plant, which I put a bit of thought into, I've done this all so many times before, I could probably do it blindfolded. And the only way to get like that is to do it. It's all very well watching somebody else do it, but until you try it, it doesn't always turn out as easy as you thought it was going to be. Like that, you know, the whole plant's just fallen away as I tried to grip it, and that's because it's round the wrong way. That was the way I wanted it, wasn't it? That's better. It's going to take at least two to hold that in place, so it's fiddly, yes, but I'll come round again there and just touch those roots. Now, these roots could easily get cut, so that's as much as I can do. And we'll just hold that still while we get a bit of moss. We don't need a lot of moss for this. In the growing season, to keep this hydrated and fed, if it decides to put a new growth out, that's up to me. But what I don't want is a huge mound of moss staying soggy for 2 or 3 days in the winter time. So that's far too much, so we'll ease some off. Just want a layer. Don't even mind if some of the roots aren't even covered up. But the new roots, should I ever get any, are going to come out there. So I do need a little bit round the base. Nobelies are not really prone to rotting round the base. The flipping Latorias are. It's strange how, you know, they're all dendrobiums, but some dendrobiums are quite prone to rotting round the base if you keep them wet, especially if your temperatures are low. And others, you could probably stand them in a glass of water and they'd be okay. So, it's just getting to know which ones are which, really. How much have I got left? Get round again because I need to go up to the top of the plant where my first loop is, which has promptly been pulled off to the side, so my V is now not in the hollow, it's off to the side, but we can still get at it. We still get that pulling point just there. Whoops, that slipped a bit loose. No. There we go, tie that off. Now I won't forget what that one is and have to go back to the video, because I think that's the first Nobly I've ever mounted. All my Noblies are in pots, but this was a Kiki, and it got potted up and it grew on, it even bloomed, but then it got forgot, so it stayed in its pot too long through the winter, so every time I watered it, it stayed wet too long. So the back of the plant's tied on, yeah, front of the plant's got a gap behind it. So whichever side of that new growth, of this latest growth, the new growth decides to come out, it's covered. Even if it comes out round the back, it's still got somewhere to go because this isn't flat against the mount. So that's that one done. Some of the roots are hanging out the bottom, most are covered, not all. So that's that one. That leaves this one. Poor little thing. Still, you learn your lesson, don't you? I now know that the Latorias will take heat only if they're kept hydrated and the humidity's high. And the sort of heat I had last year, with the equipment I had, there was no way I could keep the humidity high enough. So that's why that went down. It's got to go flat on the mount somehow. So it's a bump there. I'll take that off somehow. The pliers would pinch it off. It's right where I want to put the plant. I'm just going to pinch a bit off and get it flatter. It's just so it's right where the plant's going to go, or where it ought to go, and it's going to hold it too far away from the mount. So I'm just going to pinch that back flat, or flattish. Never going to be dead flat, is it? Well, that's a lot flatter than it was. Let's take the ridge off. That's better. Now the plant will probably sit on there nicely. Yep. I've got the old canes to tie on and the 3 new canes with no leaves at the front of the plant, because that's the most likely place for it to shoot out. Hardly any roots left at all on this. I'm not even sure this is going to make it, but we got to try. I wonder if I could do it like that, actually tie it that way so that the whole plant sticks out. I've never done one like that. It would look quite nice, you know. I wonder. My worry is that because it's a wide base, if I put it upright, my roots are quite a long way from the mount. They're going to be difficult to tie without breaking. There's something... Ah! I've got a stumpy old cane there. That's what's messing me up. That's why it won't go flat against the mount. I'm just going to trim the back there, because there's only dead bits and dead roots and stuff. And with any luck, that might sit flatter on the mount. Better. Not brilliant, but better. Okay, we'll run with that. Yeah, we'll run with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if this piece doesn't actually grow. It was split into 2, the other piece is already dealt with, and that bit had a few more roots on, so it's more likely to make it. This bit does not look good, doesn't look good at all, but dendrobiums have surprised me enough times in the past for me to give it a go. That's what it really comes down to. So I've had dendrobiums that are lifeless, still shot out, and I've had others that seem to be growing quite well, have just keeled over. You take your chances. But I still think it's always worth giving a dendrobium a go. There are some other types of plants that just ain't so good. You know, they just are not easy to recover. I mean, I've got a Psychopsis in a bit of a mess at the moment that I'm going to have to take a risk with soon and do something dramatic. Or leave it where it is and let it slowly die. That's the sort of choice for that one. It's not happy with where it is, so you know, if something's not working, change it. The thing is with the Psychopsis, I'm not quite sure what to change, you know, I'm just not sure. Right, I'm going to have to garrote, well not garrote, but actually grab hold of several of these rear canes, which I'm going to need my right hand for, not my left hand, because it's fiddly. I've got to go under that one, over that one, under that one, round the needle, cast off. All the blokes are thinking, what's he flipping talking about now? Yes, I can knit. Well, I could once. Not the sort of thing most men indulge in, but I don't know why. I knitted loads of scarves. I think I even had a go at a pair of socks once, but not very successful. The scarves were brilliant, you know, wide at one end, narrow in the middle, wide at the other end, like typical people who can't knit properly. Quite a skill that is, knitting and crocheting and all that sort of stuff, you know. I had a girlfriend once whose hobby was crocheting, and she got quite upset when I said that's a very strange hobby, tying knots in things, because that's what it looked like to me. Spent all day tying knots, but when you saw the end result it was quite spectacular. A little bit too fiddly and stationary for me. I like hobbies where I can at least move around a bit now and again. While we're on that subject, the early spider orchids are out. That's my first field trip of the year, and I'm hoping, if the weather permits, to actually do that this week. What is it today? Today's Wednesday. You might not you might not see this video until after I've actually done the field trip, the way I'm stacking them up at the moment. But that's the consequences of doing a massive unpotting, is there's quite a lot of repotting and mounting videos to follow on. And obviously I'm not going to post them all at once. So they're not exactly going to be, you know, posted when they were recorded like a lot of my videos. I mean, when I walk out in the grow room and start rabbiting away and looking at plants, those videos usually go up the same day or the following morning. But these are all over the place. These are my like stockpile videos, as I call them. So if I'm out for the day, or like if I go on a field trip, I can still whack one of these up in the morning, and there's still something there for that day then. I'm going to have to use my pliers to get hold of that end. It's a little bit short. Ow! That's my thumb, not the flipping fishing line. Gotcha. So I like to have a few videos in hand, so that there are times when I can't film, sometimes for a couple of days, and that at least gives me something to post. But they could be a week old, you know, and the trouble is I may have re-looked at the plants after that video was filmed, so they're out of sequence and it gets a bit odd sometimes. I doubt if many of you notice. Right, that's the last one then. Are you reasonably secure? Not brilliant actually, that one, but it'll do. As I said, I don't even think this one's going to live, quite honestly. And there's a little bit too much moss on there, but I need to keep this one hydrated until it gets going. And then if it establishes a new root system that attaches, I can tease a bit of that moss off for the winter, because otherwise it might stay a bit wet. But I've kept it away from the base. Soggy Latoria dendrobium bases will rot in the winter with the low temperatures I've got. If you're keeping them in much warmer temperatures in the winter, they probably won't. But I can't. My grow room is a single entity, and my resting dendrobiums need those low temperatures, so everything else has to flip and put up with it, quite honestly. That's just how it goes. So that's the 4. Bit of an assortment there. We've got a twinkle, so Oncidium, actual Oncidium rather than an alliance. The Alicera is an Oncidium alliance. That should take off now with 3 new growths. That should do okay. And then we've got my first mounted Nobly type, strictly speaking, Comet King. Got a feeling I shouldn't have let that flipping Kiki bloom when it did. Nonetheless, hopefully that will now pull on. And then this Latoria type, which is Polysema crossed with Aberrans, that may not make it. If any of these 3 are not going to make it, it's going to be that one. But the other piece of it should be okay. And that leaves me a little Odontoglossum and another Latoria type, both of which are going in pots. So there we go, mammoth session. Not many mounting tips there, I don't think. They do become a bit repetitious, but you know, there's always new people joining the channel, or somebody who hadn't caught a mounting one, has only seen potting ones and didn't manage to catch a mounting one. So there you go, that's how I do it, and it's been working for quite a few years, so I'm quite happy with it. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.